Crafty friends, Amanda here with Crafting with Amanda with our Maker with Heart March 2022, and we are focusing on flip flaps, and there are just so many different varieties that Close to My Heart offers: 2x2, 3x3, 3x4, 4x4, 4x6, 5x7, 6x12, and 8x12, and in 3 of them they come with orientations of both long and short side for the adhesive attachment, so you can really just go to town with these flip flaps and do amazing things. I've seen shaker elements made out of them. I've seen ticket storage things used. I grabbed some of the layouts that I've done in the past to show you kind of what I've done with them. Sometimes you use them to hide journaling. Sometimes I use them to increase the number of photos on a page. In this case, I took this front layout and cut it in half, and then I created a third page and inlaid it inside of that 6x12 flap. And here I just had so many great photos of our family at the Grand Canyon that I had to have more flip flaps so that we could see everything and I could play with this wonderful paper. So here's the last one I want to show, and I'm just showing you that I attach my flip flaps to the actual page, and then I cut a slit in my page protector, and I have not had any problem with that. What I like to do is I don't like to see much of the flip flap. For whatever reason, I can see that and it bothers me, so I camouflage it all the time. And then I've also cut slits just for hiding some journaling. For my project today, if you haven't been following along all month with the 30 days of sketches, I am trying to create pages for a heritage album for my mom. And so I have photos from the 50s and 60s, and these happen to be photos of my parents from when they got married. And it was funny, so 2 of them were in the one box, and on a whim I decided to check all the other boxes because I have 7 of them to see if there was another one, and there was. So that's what I will be scrapping today. And I'm going to use this In Full Bloom paper. I have Miracle paper that I've been using for this heritage album because I don't want the photos to get lost with too vibrant of colors. And now that I've said that, the page that I decided to use for my background or my base page is probably one of the most vibrant in this pack, but I absolutely love this In Full Bloom. It has globes, it has cameras, it has Edison bulbs, it has butterflies. These are the die cuts from the kit, and or from the collection I should say. So I just wanted to show you how many different hearts and whatnot you get, and then I put on the cutting board the different images so you can see they're just amazing, so well cut out and everything. So for 30 Days of Sketches with Chrissy's Beautiful Life, this sketch was created by Creative Scrappers, and then so I'm using that as my inspiration. I am using both the In Full Bloom Scrapbooking Workshop stamp set and thin cut, which is this one, and off camera I went ahead and cut those out and stamped them. And then I am also using the In Full Bloom card making stamp set and thin cut, and I won't be using the picture film strip piece today, but I will be using that butterfly, or I think it will. So I went to the Cricut, and for the everyday collection I cut out this side overlay, and then looking at the sketch it looks like that they have a couple layers of doily, so I grabbed a couple of those, and then I realized that I think that it just needs to be, the whole thing needs to be framed. And it's funny to me, just adding that black frame behind the paper really kind of helped settle my eyes down. I don't know if you noticed that, but that really worked for me. I'm going to start dry fitting and kind of auditioning where I want things, and I'm showing how I'll use all 3 of the photos of my parents in a flip flap. And even though the photos are not a full 4x6, I will make this flip flap work pretty easily. And there's multiple ways you can do it. You can trim it down like a 1/2 inch longer than what you need, and then cut out one of the sides and attach some adhesive. The way I like to do it is I actually put the whole flip flap in behind the photo, and I'll add just an extra strip of adhesive right at the edge at the top of the photo so that it doesn't pull away from the page when you open and close it. So I've attached some of the red line tape, and the first thing I'm going to do is just take the adhesive strip off that comes with the regular flip flap or take the paper off the adhesive strip. So now it's adhered there. And then after much ado, I cut that out, but I will take the score tape red paper off. And so now when I attach this photo over top of it, you see very little of the mechanics of the flip flap, and everything is snug and in there nicely. So now I'm just going to adhere the main photo on the page. And this is the one of my mom with the extra bright smile, and she looks really super happy. But I love the photo of my parents looking at each other. And it's funny, I sent a text message to my husband this week that said, I know what your wife is going to look like when she's this old. And I sent a picture of my mom as she is right now, because I look at so many of these photos and I totally see myself. So if you haven't watched my channel, I love to shape my leaves and flowers. So here I'm just taking a stylus and into a foam mat, I'm just kind of giving them some shape and interest. And when you do that, you're actually stretching the fibers of the cardstock, so it gives it a memory for that stretch. With this cut file, there was an extra kind of little rosette with the 2 leaves that went in the upper corner. So I put that together. And then this photo is where my mom and dad are together at my grandparents' house. And there was like 5 or 6 different photos. They were exactly the same. But on the back of one of them, and it was bent, was my aunt's writing. And my mom and my aunt are 8 years apart. So my aunt must have been 13 years old at most. And so it says my sister, and it wrote my mom's name and my dad's name and married on this, date. But the story of my parents getting married is they met in college, their junior year in September. They got married December 5th, and then they each went home not telling their families that they were married. So my dad went back to Connecticut. My mom went to Parkersburg, West Virginia area. They enjoyed Christmas with their families, went back to school, and then after the tuition bills had been paid, then they told their families that they had gotten married. So here I just backed both of those photos that I'm going to do in the side flip flap with avocado cardstock, and now I'm just using some embellishments to kind of hide some of the imperfections on the back of this photo, but highlight the writing of my aunt, of her 12-year-old or 13-year-old self. So here I'm going to show you how I make the daisies. So you need 2 layers for each daisy, and I just stack them up and hold them together, and using my piercing tool, I pinch each leaf around, or each petal around the piercing tool, and then you separate the 2 layers, put them back together with a dot of glue, kind of pull up all the petals. For the center, I just take the back of my piercing tool and make a ring right around the edge, add some pop dot in the center, and you have a nice mounded daisy. I realized that I forgot to add the avocado leaf background behind my die cut or my Cricut cut, so I'm doing that now, and I'm just kind of using my piercing tool, and thankfully I didn't glue everything down, so I'm able to just sneak in those shapes so they go in there nicely. And I had a big issue with putting the flip flap on this side of the page. I accidentally took part of the adhesive protection on, and it laid down on the paper doily on my page. So I have a rip in the paper doily, and so once I got that all situated, now I'm kind of laying down some of the paper doily so it doesn't come up. And then there's a little bit of damage when you open up that little flip flap. So I'm going to put some sort of a flower element there. So bam, there's no issues here. It's all covered. So these are from the scrapbook workshop, or the scrapbooking stamp and thin cut for In Full Bloom. And I'm going to add some color, and I realized as I went to get my inks, I packed up what I thought was just my old retired inks, but my Lagoon ink must have gotten packed with that set because it is an older pad. So instead I'm taking Bluebird, and I put that in the center, and then I'm taking Glacier and trying to imitate the Lagoon color that I really should have had the ink for. But we are in kind of the beginning stages of moving to Florida, so it's over 2,500 miles, and the last time we moved I only packed up about 80% of my papers and only about 85% of them arrived in California unscathed. So this time I am packing up more of my stuff so that I feel more confident that it's going to arrive well. So here I am just putting the daisies over top of the overlay, kind of where they had that 5 and 6 flower outline. In Cricut, I hid the contour because there was a center to those, but I knew I was going to cover them with real daisies just to give them some real paper daisies, just to give some depth to this layout. I also know that this layout is going to be kind of one of a feature one in this book. I don't know if it's going to be the start because I have photos from when my mom was in middle school and high school, or if it's going to be the start of a second book because I have hundreds of photos from my mom from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And here I'm kind of snugging in all of these daisies so that they're not kind of in, a line, but kind of a chain across, and you can still see the other flowers and the charcoal leaves that are poking up there. So I thought about putting some sequins on, and I just felt like it was going to be too much. So here I'm going to show you how I put page protectors and flip flaps, how I get them to interact together. So I just take a Sharpie pen and I mark 2 small dots where the beginning and end of the flip flaps are. And then I push my cutting board through inside the page protector, and I'll just cut a line connecting those 2 dots. And I actually go just a hair outside of both of those dots so that there's a little wiggle room to get those page protectors in. So there's for the first photo, and then I'll slide this down again and I will do the second one. And you can't even really see where those dots are for the cuts without cutting it. And then once you cut through those dots, you can't see that I did anything. If you do make your Sharpie dot a little too dark and you can see it after you've made the cut, a little bit of rubbing alcohol or even hand sanitizer just rubbed over top will normally take care of that. So here I'm going to remove the photo from the small flip flap just because the big flip flap is oriented, so I just have to pull it down through, where the small one ends up being opposite, so I would have to bend it to get it through the slit. And I realized about now that there's a leaf that's holding it from going in. I was really struggling. I'm like, why is this a problem? And then I realized there's a leaf at the bottom that's holding it, and I'll figure that out here and finally get it to go in. There we go. There's that leaf that was holding everything up. So now the flip flap's in, and that first one just pulled through nicely. And here I will just go ahead and bring the other flip flap through. And you can see now why I went ahead and took the photo out, because just wrinkling it like that doesn't affect the flip flap, but it really would mess up the photo. So now I've put that back in, and we have the layout ready to go. You can see the flowers on there. You can see the smile on my parents' faces. Be sure to check out Kim's video was yesterday. Katie is going to be tomorrow, and then Julie and Dawn end out our week. So if you missed Lori, Jessica, or Kim's, they will be in the playlist here. And I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you.